My name is Samantha Reed. I was 29 years old when my boyfriend looked me directly in the eyes and asked me to disappear from my own apartment for an entire weekend. Not suggested. Asked might not even be the right word. He told me, "I need the apartment this weekend," Ethan said. "Friday through Sunday. And please don't ask questions." I was standing at the kitchen counter cutting vegetables for a dinner he had already complained was too late. The knife stopped halfway through a red pepper. Ethan Cole was 27. We had been together for about 18 months, and although he maintained a small apartment across town, he spent 4 or 5 nights a week at mine. He had clothes in my bedroom, expensive moisturizer beside my toothbrush, and a permanent collection of protein drinks occupying half my refrigerator. We were not officially living together. We were simply living together whenever it benefited him. I looked over my shoulder. "You need my apartment. Just for the weekend. And where exactly am I supposed to go?" He shifted his weight, avoiding my eyes. "Stay with Rachel, or book a hotel." Rachel was my cousin and one of my closest friends. She was also an attorney, which would become important later. "Why do you need it?" Ethan exhaled, as though I were the one being difficult. "Sam, please, don't make this into something. I'm asking why my boyfriend needs me to leave my own home. It's personal. So personal that I can't be here." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I wouldn't ask unless it mattered." "You're not asking." That made him look at me. For a second, something cold passed through his expression. Then it disappeared beneath the charming smile he used whenever he needed me to doubt my own instincts. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "You're right. I'm asking. Please trust me." Trust. The word landed strangely. Ethan had been acting different for nearly 2 months. He took phone calls in the hallway. He began placing his phone face down on every surface. Plans changed at the last minute, and whenever I asked why, he accused me of interrogating him. Sometimes I caught him smiling at a message. The smile always vanished when he noticed me watching. Still, I had told myself there were reasonable explanations. Work pressure, family problems. Maybe he was planning a surprise. People will invent entire worlds to avoid admitting that the person sleeping beside them may be lying. "I'll help pay for the hotel," Ethan added. That was when I knew something was wrong. Ethan never volunteered to split expenses. Dinner, vacations, groceries. There was always a reason he would pay me later. Yet now he was willing to finance my removal from my own apartment. I placed the knife on the counter. "Fine," I said. "I'll arrange something." Relief flashed across his face before he could hide it. He crossed the kitchen and kissed my cheek. "Thank you. You're amazing." I smiled. Then I ordered a security camera. It was small, disguised as an ordinary phone charger, and connected directly to cloud storage. It arrived Thursday afternoon while Ethan was at work. I positioned it in the living room, angled toward the entrance couch and part of the kitchen. I tested the video on my phone. The image was sharp. The audio was clearer than I expected. For a moment, guilt twisted inside me. Installing a hidden camera felt deceptive. Then, I reminded myself that Ethan had demanded possession of my home while refusing to explain what he intended to do there. Friday afternoon, I packed an overnight bag and performed the role he had written for me. I kissed him goodbye. "Enjoy your mysterious weekend." He laughed nervously. "You're never gonna let that go, are you?" "I haven't decided." His smile tightened. I stayed with Rachel, who lived 30 minutes away. I told her only that Ethan needed space and that I did not trust his explanation. She studied me over the rim of her wine glass. "You already know something's wrong," she said. "I don't know anything. You installed a camera. I want proof that I'm being paranoid." Rachel's expression softened. "And what happens if you're not?" I did not answer. For several hours, the feed showed nothing unusual. Ethan ordered food, opened one of my bottles of wine, and watched television. By 9 o'clock, I felt embarrassed. Maybe I had crossed a line. Maybe there really was an innocent explanation. Then someone knocked. Ethan stood so quickly that he nearly knocked over his glass. A woman stepped inside. She was around 30, polished and elegant, wearing a dark coat over an office dress. Ethan closed the door behind her. Then he kissed her, not on the cheek, not hesitantly. He wrapped one hand around her waist and kissed her like they had spent all week waiting for that moment. I watched from Rachel's couch, unable to breathe. The woman laughed and touched his chest. Finally, she said, "I was beginning to think you'd never get her out of here." Ethan glanced around my apartment. "She won't be back until Sunday." The woman handed him a bottle of wine. No more hotels. No more hotels. My hands went cold. They lit candles that belonged to me. They opened wine from glasses my mother had given me. They sat on my couch beneath the blanket Ethan and I had shared the night before. When they began kissing again, I closed the application. I did not need to see the rest. But I left the camera recording. Rachel found me sitting in silence. "What happened?" "He brought a woman into my apartment." Her face changed immediately. "Are you sure?" I handed her the phone. She watched only a few seconds before locking the screen. "Oh, Sam." I expected to cry. Instead, I felt hollow, as though my body had emptied itself to make room for something colder. The following morning, I checked the feed again. They were in my kitchen making breakfast. Ethan stood at the stove, while the woman leaned against my counter barefoot and laughing. They looked comfortable, not like two people making a reckless mistake, but like two people repeating a familiar ritual. Then she reached for a coffee cup. A diamond ring caught the morning light. I froze the image and enlarged it. She was engaged. Ethan was not merely cheating on me. He was helping someone else cheat on the man she planned to marry. I captured several clear images of her face and searched online. Her handbag had a distinctive logo from a consulting company, and after an hour of digging through staff pages and tagged photographs, I found her, Vanessa Hawley, senior strategy consultant, recently engaged to Daniel Mercer. Her public social media page contained photographs from the proposal. Vanessa stood beside Daniel on a beach, holding up the same ring I had just seen in my kitchen. Daniel's caption said he could not wait to spend the rest of his life with his best friend. I stared at his smiling face. He had no idea that his fiancé was eating breakfast with my boyfriend inside my apartment. I downloaded 3 clips, Vanessa arriving their first kiss, and the two of them together the next morning. Nothing explicit, nothing unnecessary. Only the truth. Then I found Daniel's professional email address and wrote, "I'm sorry to be the person telling you this. I have been dating the man in these videos for 18 months. He asked me to leave my apartment for the weekend without explaining why. I became suspicious and installed a camera inside my home. The woman with him appears to be your fiancé. The recordings are timestamped. I am ending my relationship, but I believe you deserve to know the truth about yours." I attached the files. My finger hovered above the button. Once I sent them, there would be no quiet breakup, no comfortable lies, no returning to the life I had believed in 2 days earlier. I pressed send. Sunday afternoon, Ethan began calling. Once, then again, then 5 times in less than 3 minutes. I opened the camera feed. He was pacing my living room while Vanessa stood near the window staring at her own phone. Both of them looked terrified. Ethan left a voicemail. "Sam, where are you? Call me immediately. Something happened." The next message arrived 30 seconds later. "This isn't funny. Pick up." Then, "Stop ignoring me. This is serious." I listened to the panic in his voice and realized something that would stay with me for a long time. Ethan was not frightened because he had hurt me. He was frightened because someone else finally knew what he had done. I turned off my phone. On Monday morning, I would return to my apartment. By then, the locksmith would already be waiting. I returned to my apartment shortly after 8 on Monday morning. Ethan was gone. So was Vanessa. But they had left behind enough evidence to make the place feel unfamiliar. 2 wine glasses sat beside the sink. One of my candles had burned down to the metal base. A woman's perfume lingered in the hallway mixed with Ethan's cologne and the stale smell of food left uncovered overnight. I stood in the center of the living room and stared at my couch. Nothing about it had changed. That was the problem. It looked exactly the same, even though I could no longer look at it without seeing Ethan's hand on another woman's waist. Rachel had offered to come with me, but I told her I needed to do this alone. The locksmith arrived at 9. By 10, Ethan's key no longer worked. I emptied his drawer, gathered the toiletries from the bathroom, and packed every shirt, shoe, charger, and forgotten receipt into cardboard boxes. I did not fold anything carefully. I did not throw anything either. I wanted there to be no argument that I had damaged his property. At 6 that evening, someone began pounding on the door. Samantha. I remained seated at the kitchen table. His key scraped uselessly inside the new lock. Then my phone rang. I answered on the 4th call. My key isn't working, Ethan said. I changed the locks. Silence. You did what? Your belongings are packed. I'll bring them downstairs. Sam, wait. We need to talk. There's nothing to discuss. You don't get to decide that alone. I almost laughed. You decided our relationship was over when you brought Vanessa into my apartment. Another silence followed longer this time. Did you go through my phone? No. Then how did you... He stopped. I let him understand. The camera, he whispered. My camera? In my apartment. You recorded us. You asked me to leave my home without telling me why. I protected myself. That's insane. That has to be illegal. It isn't. You sent the footage to Daniel. It was not a question. Yes. Ethan's breathing sharpened. Do you have any idea what you've done? What I've done? Vanessa's engagement is over. Daniel has been contacting people. This could ruin her career. That sounds like a consequence of her affair. It wasn't like that. What was it like? It's complicated. No, Ethan. It's embarrassingly simple. You used my apartment to sleep with an engaged woman. We didn't. I watched you kiss her. I heard her say she was tired of hotels. He went quiet. That single sentence told me more than any confession could have. This had happened before, many times. You had no right to contact Daniel, he finally said. He had a right to know. It wasn't your relationship. And Vanessa wasn't your fiancé. That didn't stop you from getting involved. His voice rose. You destroyed everything. You destroyed it. I documented it. I ended the call before he could answer. When I carried the first box downstairs, Ethan was standing outside the building with his older sister Lauren. Lauren had never liked me. She thought I was too independent, which was her polite way of saying I did not tolerate Ethan's excuses as easily as his family did. She stepped forward immediately. You secretly filmed my brother. I recorded my own apartment. You violated his privacy. He had no reasonable expectation of privacy while using my home to conduct an affair. Lauren looked at Ethan as if expecting him to deny it. He stared at the pavement. That should have been enough. Instead, she turned back to me. You could have just broken up with him. You didn't need to humiliate Vanessa. I sent the footage privately to her fiancé. You had no idea what was happening between them. I knew enough. Ethan's eyes were red. Whether from crying or lack of sleep, I could not tell. Can we talk for 5 minutes? He asked. No. Samantha, please. No. His face tightened. Vanessa ended things with me. For one stunned second, I simply looked at him. Not Daniel ended the engagement. Not I hurt you. Vanessa ended things with me. That was the loss he was mourning. I nodded slowly. Then I suppose she made her choice. You don't understand. She said she loved me. And you believed a woman who lied to the man she was marrying. His expression twisted. Lauren reached for the boxes. You're being cruel. That word again. Cruel. As though cruelty was exposing betrayal, not committing it. I handed her the final box. You're right about one thing, I said. I could have ended things quietly. But Daniel would still be planning a wedding with someone who'd been lying to him for months. I refused to help them keep that secret. Ethan stepped closer. I was going to tell you. When? I needed time. For what? To figure things out? To decide which life benefited you more? He had no answer. I went back inside and blocked his number. Then I blocked Lauren. By midnight, 3 unknown numbers had called me. One voicemail came from Ethan's best friend accusing me of being unstable. Another came from a woman I barely knew, saying I had ruined several lives because I was jealous. I deleted both. A week later, Daniel emailed me. His message was calm. Thank you for telling me. I ended the engagement the same day. I am sorry that you were betrayed too. Vanessa admitted enough for me to know the videos were real. I read the message twice. Then I replied, "I'm sorry you had to learn the truth from a stranger. You deserve to know before making a permanent commitment." He responded within an hour. "There's something you should be aware of. Vanessa is telling people that you edited the footage because you were obsessed with Ethan and wanted revenge. Ethan is supporting that version." Of course he was. I wrote back that I still had the original files with timestamps and metadata. Daniel thanked me but said he hoped it would not become necessary. 2 days later, Ethan's best friend Marcus appeared in my building lobby. Security called upstairs. "There's a man here asking for you. He says it's urgent. Do not let him up." Marcus began shouting loudly enough that I could hear him through the phone. He called me a psychopath. He told security I had secretly recorded private sexual activity and distributed it online. Neither claim was true. I had not recorded the bedroom, and I had sent limited clips to one person. Security ordered him to leave. That evening, Ethan sent me a 6-page email. He admitted the affair had lasted 6 months. He admitted he knew Vanessa was engaged. He admitted they had been meeting in hotels and had used my apartment because Daniel had nearly moved into Vanessa's place. Then, after confessing everything Ethan claimed I had betrayed his trust, he wrote that he had planned to break up with me when the timing was right. He accused me of robbing him of the chance to explain. He said Vanessa was his soulmate. He also said I had destroyed his relationship with her. The contradictions would have been funny if they had not made me feel sick. I forwarded the email to Rachel. Her response arrived immediately. "Save this. Do not reply." The next morning, I received a legal threat from someone claiming to represent Ethan and Vanessa. The email came from a generic address and used a letterhead that looked as though it had been copied from a template. It demanded that I delete every recording stop communicating with Daniel and compensate Ethan and Vanessa for emotional damage. Rachel called me laughing. "This person is not a lawyer. How can you tell? The letter cites laws that do not exist, the firm has no registered address, and the signature belongs to no licensed attorney I can find. So ignore it. You save it, then ignore it." 3 days later, Vanessa came to my workplace. I had just returned from lunch when the receptionist called. "There's a woman here asking to speak with you. She seems upset." I walked into the lobby and recognized her immediately. She looked different from the woman in my apartment, less polished. Her eyes were swollen, and her hair had been pulled into a loose knot. "You ruined my life," she said. Security moved closer. "You came to my workplace to tell me that Daniel left. My family knows. People at work are talking. You chose to cheat. Ethan told me you two were practically over. We weren't. He said you barely had a relationship. And you never thought to verify that before sleeping with him in my home." Vanessa's face reddened. "You sent those videos because you wanted to hurt me. I sent them because Daniel deserved the truth. You had no right." "I had evidence." She stepped closer. "You think you're better than me?" "No. I think I was betrayed by Ethan, and Daniel was betrayed by you." Her eyes filled with tears. "I was going to leave Daniel, but you didn't. I needed time." I almost admired how perfectly she repeated Ethan's words. Security positioned himself between us. "Ma'am, you need to leave." Vanessa pointed at me. "This isn't over." I met her stare. The words should have frightened me. Instead, they sounded like a warning she was giving about herself, because by then the affair had already ended. What remained was blame. And Ethan and Vanessa had decided that as long as they could make me the villain, they would never have to look honestly at what they had done. For almost 2 weeks, I convinced myself the worst was over. The relationship had ended. Daniel had ended his engagement. The truth was out. Surely everyone would go their separate ways. I underestimated what desperate people will do when they're determined to rewrite history. The first sign came on a Tuesday evening. I found a handwritten note taped to my apartment door. "You didn't have to destroy everything. You could have broken up with me privately. You wanted revenge, and now everyone's paying for it." There was no signature. There didn't need to be. I recognized Ethan's handwriting immediately. I folded the note carefully, slid it into a plastic folder, and sent a picture to Rachel. Her reply came seconds later. "Keep every piece of contact. Don't throw anything away. build a timeline. That became my routine. Every unknown phone call, every email, every text from unfamiliar numbers, every social media message. Everything went into a folder. A few days later, while I was finishing a workout, I noticed someone standing near the treadmills. Ethan. I hadn't told him which gym I used. He had never worked out there with me. Yet somehow he had found me. He walked straight toward me. We need to talk. I didn't even slow down. No. You can't ignore me forever. I absolutely can. You owe me closure. I finally hit the emergency stop button and looked him directly in the eye. Closure ended the moment you invited another woman into my apartment. People nearby had started watching. You destroyed my life, Ethan whispered. No. My job is at risk. No. Everyone thinks I'm some monster. I shook my head. You keep confusing consequences with revenge. He reached toward my arm. Instinctively, I stepped back. A gym employee immediately noticed. Is everything okay? She's refusing to let me explain, Ethan said. I answered before the employee could respond. My ex-boyfriend cheated on me with an engaged woman in my apartment. I ended the relationship. He's been contacting me ever since. The employee looked from Ethan to me. Sir, does she want to speak with you? No. The employee nodded once. Then you need to leave. This is between us. It stopped being between you when she said no. Ethan's expression hardened. For a second, I saw someone I barely recognized. Not the charming man I dated, not even the guilty man outside my building, just someone angry that he no longer controlled the conversation. He walked away without another word. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The following afternoon, I received an email from Ethan's mother. The subject line read, I expected better from you. The message was astonishing. She described Ethan as a good young man who simply made a mistake. She accused me of humiliating him. She suggested my independence and long work hours had probably pushed him towards someone who made him feel appreciated. Then came the sentence that made me laugh out loud. If you had been more understanding, perhaps Ethan wouldn't have looked elsewhere. I forwarded the email to Rachel. Her only reply was, excellent evidence. Keep collecting. 3 days later, another strange message arrived. Someone claiming to work in human resources at Vanessa's consulting company contacted me through LinkedIn. They requested a meeting regarding possible violations involving private recordings. The profile looked legitimate at first glance. Still, something felt wrong. I called Rachel before replying. Don't answer. You don't think it's real. If human resources wanted information about a legal matter, they wouldn't contact you through LinkedIn. So it's a trap. Almost certainly. Blocked. Saved. Filed. By then, my folder documenting everything had become surprisingly thick. I had no idea how valuable it would soon become. One Thursday evening, I came home from work carrying groceries. Something immediately felt off. My apartment door wasn't fully closed. It sat open by barely an inch. Every instinct screamed at me not to touch it. Instead, I backed away and called building security. Within minutes, 2 security officers met me outside my unit. One unlocked the door, while the other remained beside me. We entered together. Nothing appeared stolen. Television, laptop, jewelry. Everything seemed present. Then I noticed the details. Desk drawers left slightly open. Closet doors not completely shut. Kitchen cabinets rearranged. A folder on my desk had clearly been moved. Someone had searched my apartment. One security officer immediately contacted the building manager. The other reviewed hallway camera footage. 15 minutes later, he returned with an expression that told me everything. We found someone. My stomach tightened. Ethan. He shook his head. No. He turned his tablet toward me. There was Ethan, standing outside the entrance, holding the exterior door open. For Vanessa. She slipped inside behind another resident. They had deliberately waited until someone else entered the building, tailgating, trying to avoid security. The footage later showed Ethan remaining outside while Vanessa disappeared upstairs. She exited my floor almost 20 minutes later. That explained everything. She had entered my apartment. I felt physically sick. The police arrived shortly afterward. They photographed the apartment, collected fingerprints, documented the security footage, took statements from both security officers. One officer looked at me after finishing his report. Given the previous harassment you've documented, I'd strongly recommend applying for a restraining order. Rachel said exactly the same thing. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. I expected Ethan to appear. I did not expect the spectacle he brought with him. He arrived with his mother, Revenyx, and the same fake lawyer who had emailed me weeks earlier. The courtroom became noticeably quieter as the hearing began. The judge asked everyone to identify themselves. When the fake attorney introduced himself as legal counsel, the judge asked for his bar number. He hesitated. I don't have it with me. You don't know your own bar number. I can provide it later. The judge folded her hands. No, you can provide it now. Silence. The courtroom clerk checked the state database. Nothing. The judge's expression cooled instantly. Sir, unless you are a licensed attorney, you may not represent anyone in this courtroom. He quietly gathered his papers and left. Vanessa looked horrified. Ethan stared at the floor. Then it was my turn. Rachel had helped me organize every piece of evidence chronologically. The security camera footage proving the affair. The timestamps. The email confession. The fake legal threat. Screenshots of repeated phone calls. Photos of the handwritten note. Building security reports. Gym incident. Workplace confrontation. The building surveillance showing Vanessa entering illegally. The police report documenting the break-in. The judge reviewed everything carefully. Then, she looked at Ethan. Did you continue attempting contact after Miss Reed clearly ended communication? Ethan tried to answer carefully. I just wanted closure. Did she ask you to contact her? No. Did she ask Miss Hale to enter her apartment? No. Did you encourage or assist Miss Hale in entering the building? He hesitated. That hesitation answered the question. Vanessa suddenly interrupted. We only wanted to retrieve evidence that she'd been spreading. The judge stopped her immediately. You entered another person's residence without permission. Vanessa's attorney, who no longer existed, wasn't there to interrupt. She realized what she'd admitted. Too late. The judge turned back toward me. Miss Reed, based upon the documented pattern of unwanted contact, harassment, workplace, confrontation, unauthorized entry into your residence, and repeated attempts to intimidate you, I am granting a 1-year restraining order. She continued. Mr. Cole, you are prohibited from contacting Miss Reed directly or indirectly. She looked toward Vanessa. The same applies to you, Miss Hale. Ethan finally looked up. Samantha. The judge cut him off. No. Her voice echoed through the courtroom. You've had many opportunities to make better decisions. His mother stood abruptly. This is unfair. My son is the victim. The bailiff calmly escorted her back into her seat. The judge signed the order. Just like that. The law finally drew a boundary that Ethan refused to respect. Outside the courthouse, Rachel squeezed my shoulder. You did everything right. I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. For the first time in weeks, I believed her. That evening, Daniel sent me a message. I thought you should know Vanessa came to my apartment yesterday. My heart sank. What happened? She brought flowers. She cried. She wanted another chance. And I told her to leave. He paused before sending another message. She said all of this was your fault. I stared at the screen. Even after everything. Neither Ethan nor Vanessa could accept the simplest truth. Their affair hadn't collapsed because I exposed it. It had collapsed because it had been built on deception from the very beginning. For the first time in nearly 2 months, life became quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. The restraining order had done what my repeated requests never could. Ethan stopped calling. Vanessa disappeared. No more handwritten notes. No more surprise appearances. No more anonymous accusations. I started believing I could finally rebuild my life. Then, one Monday afternoon, a small package arrived at my office. No return address. No sender's name. Just my work address, written neatly across a plain brown envelope. Inside was a single flash drive. Attached to it was a sticky note. Thought you deserved to see how it ended. I didn't plug it into my work computer. Old habits die hard. That evening, I took it home and opened it on an old laptop I used only for backups. There was one video file. The timestamp showed it had been recorded less than a week earlier. The camera angle suggested it came from the security system inside a neighborhood coffee shop. Ethan and Vanessa sat across from each other. Neither of them looked anything like the glamorous couple I had watched through my own security camera. Ethan's tie was crooked. Vanessa looked exhausted. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. The conversation had already begun. "You promised," Vanessa said. "I never promised anything. You said you were leaving Samantha." "I said things were complicated." "You told me you loved me." Ethan rubbed both hands across his face. "I told you a lot of things. You used me." He laughed bitterly. "I used you. I risked everything. You volunteered. I gave you her apartment." "My apartment," Ethan snapped. "That was your idea." Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. "You loved that we had somewhere safe. You offered. You could have said no. So could you." Silence. Neither of them spoke for nearly 20 seconds. Then Vanessa whispered something that almost made me feel sorry for her. "You lost Daniel." Ethan answered without looking up. "I lost everything." "No," she replied. "You lost me." His response came cold and immediate. "I already did." Vanessa threw her coffee across the table. The cup bounced onto the floor. Customers turned to stare. She stood abruptly. "I hate you." Ethan didn't move. "You'll get over it." She walked away without another word. The video ended. I sat in silence. Not because I enjoyed watching two broken people destroy each other. Because, for the first time, neither of them blamed me. There were no accusations. No claims that I'd ruined their lives. Only two people finally confronting the consequences they had created together. I never learned who mailed me that recording. Daniel insisted it wasn't him. Rachel joked that maybe karma had finally hired a videographer. Weeks passed. Then the quiet broke one last time. Rachel called me while I was leaving work. Ethan violated the restraining order. My stomach tightened. "What happened?" "He had Lauren send you a message." I checked my blocked message folder. There it was. A text from Lauren. "Ethan just wants to apologize. Please stop punishing him." One sentence. That was enough. Indirect contact still violated the court order. Rachel reported it immediately. A hearing was scheduled. Ethan admitted Lauren had sent the message at his request. The judge was unimpressed. 1 night in county jail. 12 months of probation. Mandatory counseling. Additional restrictions added to the existing order. Walking out of the courthouse, I realized something strange. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. A few weeks later, Daniel reached out one final time. "I thought you should know." "What happened?" "Vanessa was fired." I frowned. I thought companies didn't terminate people over personal relationships. "They don't." He paused. "But apparently, she stopped showing up consistently." "Really?" Performance collapsed. Deadlines were missed. Clients complained. Office gossip hadn't helped. Neither had months of emotional chaos. Eventually, the company decided to move on. "And you?" I asked. There was a long pause before his answer arrived. "I'm seeing someone." I smiled. "I'm glad. My sister introduced us." "That's wonderful. She's honest." The message made me laugh. "That's becoming my favorite quality too," he replied with a smiling emoji. It was the last conversation we ever had. Life slowly became recognizable again. The first thing I replaced was the couch. Some people thought that was ridiculous. Furniture was just furniture. Not to me. Every time I looked at it, I remembered opening that camera feed. Remembered watching Ethan kiss someone else beneath the blanket we had shared. So I donated it. Bought an entirely different style. Different color. Different fabric. Then came the dining chairs. New bedding. Fresh curtains. Different artwork. I rearranged almost every room. Not because the apartment needed redecorating, because I did. The visible security camera stayed beside my front door. Anyone approaching my apartment could see it immediately. It wasn't there because I expected another betrayal. It was there because I had learned that peace of mind was worth far more than appearances. Some mutual friends quietly disappeared. A few insisted I had gone too far. You should have broken up privately. Sending Daniel the videos was unnecessary. People make mistakes. Maybe they were right about one thing. I could have walked away without saying anything. Daniel would have married Vanessa. He would have discovered the truth years later. Maybe after children. Maybe after buying a house. Maybe after building an entire future on a lie. If our positions had been reversed, wouldn't I have wanted someone to tell me? Absolutely. Even if it hurt. Especially if it hurt. Rachel once asked whether I regretted installing the camera. I thought about it for a long time. No. Not even a little. I shook my head. The camera didn't destroy my relationship. What did? Ethan did. She smiled. Exactly. Months later, while cleaning out an old drawer, I found the hotel brochure Ethan had suggested when asking me to leave my apartment. I stared at it for a moment before throwing it into the trash. Funny. That single request had sounded almost reasonable at the time. Just one weekend. Just trust me. Don't ask questions. If someone had told me then that one decision would uncover months of lies, expose another couple's collapsing engagement, lead to restraining orders, arrests, fake legal threats, and courtroom hearings, I never would have believed them. But life rarely announces its turning points. Sometimes, they begin with one sentence that doesn't quite make sense. One uncomfortable feeling in your stomach. One tiny voice whispering, something isn't right. For weeks after everything happened, I questioned myself. Was I paranoid? Controlling? Vindictive? Those were the labels Ethan and Vanessa desperately wanted me to accept. The truth was much simpler. I listened to my instincts. I protected my own home. I documented what happened inside it. And when I discovered another innocent person was being deceived, I gave him the truth I would have wanted someone to give me. Everything that followed belonged to Ethan and Vanessa. Their lies, their choices, their consequences. I didn't destroy their lives. I simply refused to protect the secret they had built them on. Today I'm dating again. Slowly, carefully. Trust doesn't return overnight. But fear no longer controls me either. Looking back now, the most valuable thing that little security camera ever recorded wasn't the affair. It was the end of every excuse. No gaslighting. No rewriting history. No claims that I imagined what I saw. Just facts. Clear. Time-stamped. Impossible to deny. Sometimes people ask whether exposing the truth is worth the chaos that follows. I think they're asking the wrong question. The real question is this. If you discovered someone was building their future on a lie, could you honestly stay silent? I couldn't. And, if I had to make the same choice again, I'd press record every single time.